On today's episode of World Explained, we will discuss Putin's arrest warrant and how likely is it that countries will follow through on the ICC's arrest warrant. Moscow will send its nuclear weapons to Belarus, and who controls this nuclear arsenal, and a quick update on the Ukraine situation and what steps the world is taking to help it. Before we get further into the video, I'm going to request that everyone like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It means a lot to us. And now, without any further ado, let's jump right into today's topics. As you may know, the International Criminal Court, also known as the ICC, has released an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin. The court alleges that he is responsible for the war crime of unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia, claiming that the crimes have been committed since the 24th of February 2022, the day Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the country. Moscow vehemently denies the claim, calling it outrageous. In a statement, the ICC said it has reasonable grounds to believe that President Putin committed these criminal acts directly while claiming that he failed to use his presidential powers to stop it from happening. It is improbable that this move will produce much of a result, as the ICC has no powers to arrest suspects, and its jurisdiction is limited to member countries, which Russia is not a part of, and it is doubtful that Russians will turn their president over. However, this move ensures that the president has found his world to shrink significantly, with him not being able to travel to multiple countries. Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, is also wanted by the ICC for the same crimes. Despite the U.S. not being a part of the ICC, when President Biden was asked about this move, he said, "Well, I think it's justified." He noted that the U.S. is not signed up to the ICC, but he thinks it makes a solid point. Mr. Putin clearly committed war crimes. In the past, Russia has openly spoken of their efforts to indoctrinate the Ukrainian youth taken into Russia with propaganda. Last September, Ms. Lvova-Belova complained that some children removed from Mariupol spoke badly about the Russian president and said awful things and sang the Ukrainian anthem, while also claiming to adopt a 15-year-old boy. This clearly shows how far the Kremlin is willing to take its propaganda to make the world believe the narrative that they are the good guys. The ICC initially wanted to keep the arrest warrant a secret, but later brought it into the public eye in an effort to stop any further crimes from being committed. In an interview, Karim Khan, an ICC prosecutor, said, "Children can't be treated as the spoils of war. They can't be deported," adding, "This type of crime doesn't need one to be a lawyer. One needs to be a human being to know how egregious it is." Now one might wonder what changed for Putin after he was charged with the heinous crime. So, in theory, Putin will now be unable to travel to 2/3 of the globe, as 123 countries are part of the ICC, and these countries are obligated to detain him due to the UN treaty underpinning the court's operation. But in practice, the situation is far more complex, with some ICC member states condemning the arrest warrant and others who have set a precedent of not complying with the court's orders. South Africa, an ICC member state, has historically enjoyed a close relationship with Moscow and is reportedly seeking legal advice. They are seeking legal advice because, later this year, South Africa is supposed to host the BRICS summit in Durban in August, but it remains unclear whether Putin will attend the summit. But in case he does, President Cyril Ramaphosa's government face a tough geopolitical dilemma. Ramaphosa has refrained from commenting on this matter. Meanwhile, the leader of South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters political party, Julius Malema, has already said that Putin would be welcome in South Africa. But suppose Putin turns up at the BRICS summit. In that case, I am inclined to believe that Putin will not be arrested, as South Africa already has a checkered history with the ICC, and was condemned by the International Court, as well as a South African court for not arresting Sudanese leader Omar Hassan al-Bashir in 2015, even though he had been charged with genocide. The South African government allowed al-Bashir to leave the country, where he had attended an African Union, by private plane, defying court orders. To add to the already sticky situation, on several occasions, South Africa has expressed the desire to withdraw from the ICC. In addition to the summit in Durban, Putin might usually be expected to attend the Group of 20 Leaders meeting scheduled for September in New Delhi. India is not an ICC member state, so that trip may be possible, but Putin did not attend last year's G20 meeting in Bali, Indonesia, amid speculation that some leaders might leave rather than sit with him. Regardless of whether he travels to Durban or New Delhi, he is unlikely to travel to most of the ICC member countries in the near future, as he refuses to travel to countries that condemn the invasion of Ukraine, calling them, quote, unfriendly countries, putting himself and Russia into an isolated corner in the international stage. And despite Johannesburg's uncertain stance, multiple countries have expressed their support and willingness to execute the arrest of Putin if he arrives on their soil. This week, German Justice Minister Marco Buschmann said his country would arrest Putin. Germany will be obliged to arrest President Putin if he enters German territory and hand him over to the International Criminal Court, Buschmann told Die Zeit, a national newspaper. The French Foreign Ministry tweeted, "No one responsible for crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine, regardless of their status, should escape justice." And Britain's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly tweeted last week that those responsible for horrific war crimes in Ukraine must be brought to justice. Cleverly said that Britain welcomed the step taken by the ICC. Before discussing the current situation in Ukraine, let's first take a moment to discuss the Kremlin's move to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. President Putin is claiming that this move will not violate the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, adding Moscow will not be transferring the control of its arms to Minsk. After the announcement, the U.S. Defense Department said, "We have not seen any reason to adjust our strategic nuclear posture," adding, "We remain committed to the collective defense of the NATO alliance," making it clear that the U.S. doesn't believe Russia is preparing to use the nuclear option. Regardless of whether Moscow chooses to opt for the nuclear option, it treats this step as propaganda to make people at home believe that Russia is still in control of the situation. On Saturday, President Putin told Russian state television that Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko had long raised the issue of stationing tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. But in this interview, he said that it is not unusual for countries to station their nukes in allied countries, citing the example of the U.S. stationing its nukes in some NATO countries. Putin claims that the construction of the storage facility for nuclear weapons in Belarus will be completed by the 1st of July. Additionally, a small number of Iskander tactical missile systems, which can be used to launch nuclear weapons, have already been transferred to Belarus, but he did not specify when the nukes would be moved. This questions Russia's nuclear weapons stockpile's significance and who controls it. So Russia has inherited 5,977 nuclear warheads, compared to the U.S.'s 5,428. But an estimated 1,500 Russian warheads are retired, though still intact. 2,889 are in reserve, and 1,588 are deployed strategically. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists said that 812 are deployed on land-based ballistic missiles, 576 on submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and about 200 at heavy bomber bases. But the key to nuclear supremacy is not the number of warheads a country has, but how they choose to deliver the weapons, be it through missiles, submarines, or bombers that carry the warheads. But despite how governments decide to deploy the nukes, one thing is clear: both the US and Russia have enough nukes to destroy the world multiple times. So the nuclear option must never be used. And due to this mutually assured destruction, the US is confident Russia will not use its nukes. Now, you may wonder who gives the launch orders. The Russian president is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to using Russian nuclear weapons, both strategic and non-strategic, according to Russia's nuclear doctrine. The so-called nuclear briefcase, or Cheget, named after Mount Cheget in the Caucasus Mountains, is always with the president. The Russian defense minister, currently Sergei Shoigu, and the chief of the general staff, now Valery Gerasimov, are also thought to have such briefcases. But unlike cartoons, this briefcase has no big red button that launches the nukes when pressed. In essence, the briefcase is a communication tool that links the president with his top military brass, and thence to rocket forces via the highly secret Kazbek Electronic Command and Control Network. Kazbek supports another system known as Kavkaz. In a section called Command, there are two buttons: a white launch button and a red cancel button. The briefcase is activated by a special flash card, according to Zvezda. So launching the nukes is a multi-step process. No single person has complete command over it, and multiple fail-safes are in place. Now, let's discuss the current state of warfare in Ukraine. The war on the front lines has calmed down, and Ukrainian forces have managed to stabilize the situation in Bakhmut, where most of the Russian military focus lies. Still, the frontline situation is the toughest in the Bakhmut direction, Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's armed forces, said after a phone call with British Chief Defence Staff Tony Radakin. According to the latest intelligence update from the British Ministry of Defence, Russia's assault on Bakhmut has largely stalled. Senior Ukrainian military commander Oleksandr Syrsky said a counterattack could be launched soon against exhausted Russian forces near Bakhmut. But President Zelensky noted that Ukraine could not mount a counteroffensive as it lacks weapons, equipment, and ammunition. However, this also seems to be the case with Russian troops. In other news, North Macedonia's military has backed the transfer to Ukraine of 12 Mi-24 military helicopters that it purchased from Kiev 2 decades ago, Defense Minister Slavyanka Petrovska said. The British Defense Ministry says that Russia has likely launched at least 71 Iranian Shahed kamikaze drones against Ukraine after a 2-week let-up, suggesting that Russia has started receiving regular resupplies of small numbers of Shahed drones. The Ukrainian National Bank Governor Andriy Pishny says the bank has settled its open conflict with the government and will avoid the very dangerous practice of printing new money to fund the war effort. And Yevgeny Prigozhin, a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin and the owner of the mercenary group Wagner, has rejected a report saying he plans to scale back his military operations in Ukraine and instead concentrate on Africa. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please like this video because it helps us immensely with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on the Ukraine-Russia war, and comment down below if you have any suggestions or topics you would like us to cover. Thank you for watching the video and sticking with us this far into the video. Hope to see you in the following video.